See, we're back.
We're back. So we are streaming live on a bunch of YouTube channels and Facebook today. So, and we're here at the Oracle Paranormal Festival. Going to be here till 5 o'clock today. Excited about being here. And we're going to introduce our first guest speaker of the day. And it is Mercedez Lucke-Benedict. So are you ready, Mercedez?
Let's bring her in.
All right.
You guys ready? Okay, we're ready. So I am so excited to be here today at this amazing paranormal festival. We do have some audience members that I'm excited that you're here from different parts of the area. This is a first time for this Paracon or Paranormal Festival to be here in Oracle, Arizona. My husband and I, Joe Benedict, and he'll come up in just a minute. He is also going to be speaking with me. The reason being is because of what has happened in our lives. We have been experiencing the paranormal basically together. I'll tell you a little bit about me real quick. So I am an author now. So I have 3 books out. And the first book, which is called Through the Veil, speaks about my life and how I began in this type of work. I started as it was through car accidents, 2 back-to-back, basically like death-defying car accidents, where I literally left the body. So I'm kind of saying this to kind of get it to where people understand I wasn't always in the paranormal. In fact, I really wasn't at all, except what happened was through these accidents, I lifted out of my body the first one and basically the second one too. And when that happened, that gave me certain abilities. And it kind of happened gradually, but at the same time, my life was shifting and changing from what I was doing into a new life, which I was an actress, singer, songwriter for most of my life. And then I went through this series of accidents, and I also became a therapist, a LMT. So my life basically turned when those accidents happened because I started to feel inside the body. I started to see inside the body. And then that began a whole new life of working with spirits. And so I started to see the spirits, and it started through the veil, basically a veil of, and then it just, I call it like a video game type thing where you go through one challenge and then all of a sudden something opens up for you. And that's what happened. And so around this time that all this is happening, there was a certain point where I was really dealing with a lot of spirits and a lot of people that I was working with at my job. And I became head of the TMJ department for a worldwide beloved doctor. And so it was really weird how my life changed. But during that time at this office, I met my soon-to-be husband at the time. We ended up seeing each other, and he had his own ghosts basically with him. He was part of a haunted company that they were haunted, but they were like a paranormal, spot in Tucson. They're no longer happening. But anyway, so when I met him, I started all of a sudden seeing these other spirits, other types of spirits, that were not so good. And that set us up into this like a strange place. I usually saw happy spirits or animal spirits or just healing type things, but then the unwanted spirits started to kind of come in and into my life. And that's where this really kind of began, because then I went out to our land. Our land is here in Arizona. Our land is in the Avra Valley, Marana, Arizona. And when I drove there first to this land, I'm driving to go see Joe at the land. And I had this weird feeling, like I knew this place. I'd been here before. I just remember that so clear. And it ends up that, I mean, I really do feel like I had a strong connection to this land. So what happened was, as I started to go out there, everything was pretty much fine. And then we ended up having me move. I moved out there. And then that's really when things started happening. And so the research kind of began back then. It's like, what's happening with this land? What is happening on this land? Why are these things happening? And I knew a lot of wonderful people, like shaman, medicine men, all these different people, and they would come out and kind of examine our land. You know, so it was really kind of a magical time. It really wasn't anything bad happening to me at that time. So, but eventually that's what did start happening. So around 2019, after 3 years of really kind of battling demonic forces on our land, I was able to get us onto the dead files. I asked for help. So it was 3 years trying to actually make it happen. And then one time in 2019, it went through. And so I was pretty desperate at that time. At that time, we needed some big help. Well, we ended up being on the dead files, and they showed the episode 2020. We were called Damned in the Desert. And they basically, we were one of the people that very rarely does seem to happen on that show, but they told us we needed to leave and get off the show, get off our land. But at that same time, the pandemic was hitting. And so we couldn't move on. We had actually looked, and I was, you know, thought about putting our home up for sale. And we actually looked, and but then the pandemic happened. So I'm kind of giving you this information first so you'll know that there was a lot happening in this relationship between Joe and I and these spirits. So we ended up getting in 2020, 2020, I ended up calling in an exorcist, Reverend Bill Bean. And Reverend Bill Bean was the one who actually helped us and changed everything with God in our lives, and we were able to stay on our property. So at some point in time, I always thought, well, what had happened was so much, I never thought about a documentary. But as we started to heal, and during the pandemic time, I started to take all the research that I'd done on our land and on the area. I went to the mayor of Arizona, Ed Honig, who has passed away. And I found a wonderful archaeologist. So I put this whole team together that helped us to understand about the history of the land, but to share it with the people. So there is a documentary, and it is finally coming out this June, called Shadows of the Desert. And it is, I filmed it, and I did the research, and you know, a lot of amazing people came together with me to do this documentary. A lot of the people in the area that had been affected by these same types of energies also came to speak and talk about their stories as well. So the history of the land, when we were on the dead files, we learned so many things because they had the ability to go find that secret hidden research that the police may have had, or the different things the Army had. And so we found out that there was a huge plane helicopter crash, and I'm going to have Joe come up and kind of share that with us. And that helicopter crash and different things that we found out about. This is Joe.
Hello, everybody.
Joe Benedict. And we found out also that there was a double homicide murder with a psychotic killer right on our property, our land. Our property was, no one had ever lived there before, so it was all ranch land. And then there was other things that we found out on our own. I found out about, we have UFO sightings too. We have all kinds of things. We have missile silos by our property. So all of these things ended up being like a kettle, a pot, a boiling pot. It's just amazing what happened. So Joe, I just want you to share a little bit about one of the crashes with the men.
Okay, so there was a training mission, and there was 11 Green Beret on this and 4 reserved Air Force personnel. May 12th, 1989 was the...
No, it's March.
March.
Same,
So,
it's an M, but
yeah. Anyway, so they're going to a training mission in Yuma, and there's Pony 1 and 2. They call it Pony 12 as the incident, but Pony 2 was cruising along behind them, and the rotor bearing burned up, thing exploded, crashed, and that was just a couple of rock throws away from our property is where that all went down, what all happened. So we have that incident there. One of the things I want to back up a little bit, Native Americans.
Right.
Yeah. We live real close to a wash that used to run pretty much year round. It's called the Brawley Wash. So our property had been occupied by Native Americans, farming and stuff like that. And evidence is showing up to 12,000 years they've been here doing that. And there's been all kinds of bloodshed that happened because of that. The warring Indian nations, the Spaniards coming in and trying to take the land, what the white man had done to the Native Americans, on and on and on. Lots.
I want to stop right there because originally it was the Spanish. The Spanish,
yes.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to make anything political or anything, but it was originally the Spanish came in with the priests, with Father Kino.
Right.
And
yeah.
really the whole thing kind of started happening with that.
Yeah, so there's lots of paranormal activity on our property. Lots of blood have been spilled. We had shamans come out. We had all kinds of people try to bless this property, try to remove these demonic forces, these unwanted energies on our property. And it wasn't until our friend Bill Bean came and did his deliverance that it really, it cleared the property. He said one thing to me that has really stuck, and I have done it religiously. He said, Joe, you are the priest of the property, and I bless and cleanse that property on a nightly basis. I sit out by our fire bowl with my chair facing west nightly and just take care of, just go through my prayers and gratitudes and cleansing of the property pretty much nightly. So lots has happened in our property, but the good thing is it's so beautiful now. We've got massive trees on there, all kinds of wildlife. Our little ranch is just a beautiful little slice of the Sonoran Desert.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's the miracle, I think, that happened. But what was happening was, as Joe was talking about some of these things, like that's why it was always like a cursed land. And so when I went to ask these neighbors, different neighbors of Picture Rocks and Avra Valley, some of the old timers, they're like, yeah, this place has always been called cursed, but you can't find that. You couldn't find that. Who else but the people that had lived there forever, they considered that area cursed. So when I say cursed, what I was finding is that we live on a little dirt road, long dirt road, but there were so many deaths and murders on our dirt road alone. I couldn't even believe it. Like 10 on our dirt road. And it went on and beyond our neighborhood. And so it was like, what is happening? And then people would talk about the same things, like the shadow man. So the shadow man is somebody that was coming into our lives, and I would see this person. And so, but when I started to talk about this with others, they didn't know what I was seeing. They were seeing the same thing. They were seeing a shadow man, like literally walking down in front of their house, and they'd walk right by them and disappear. And The same thing, we'd have the cigarette smoke and different things that you'd be like, what is that? Nobody smokes. We have children, all these little children's voices that would be heard. And then I would see children. I mean, you'd hear them knocking. So we had an amazing group come out, and they're here with us, Tucson Ghost Society. So Becky McKitty-Gaitis and her team, which are also here in this Paranormal Festival today. She was one of the people that literally brought validation to me for what was happening, because we'd just already gone through the dead files, and that was really hard to go through, and then just kind of, right into the pandemic. But Debbie, but Becky, their team would come out and they would film, and they ended up making our property like a training area, because it was so active that every time they'd find people, they'd find spirits, they'd find what they called intelligent. It's an intelligent haunt. So the spirits know exactly what we're doing and talking, talking about our dog Eli or different things like that. And she would catch them. At one point before the exorcism, there was like 5 different voices caught in it. We have a little cabin, and that was the cabin that was really, it was like festering in this cabin. And there was like 5 different voices, and some of them were, you couldn't even understand what kind of voices they were, but they were like from another planet voice. And then one was a child that's saying, I'm scared. Like this child, they were like held there in this property. So when we had a series of 3 deliverance exorcisms, and on the within the first one, the next time that they had come back into different areas, we never heard that type of voices again, ever. By the 3rd time, we had to do it in sections of our property. And so by the 3rd time, everything really changed, and our life has completely changed. So it's been a really amazing journey. And when I like to talk about the history, because there is so much involved. Like what I found was, and Joe can talk a little bit about this too, is we have these little, he started seeing things in the sky, which I've seen too, but with the missile silos. So I'm a podcaster. I have 3 different podcasts. At that time, I was not. I had walked away from media. I'm now back in media. But I was on a show, started with Kev Dave Baker, eventually telling what happened. And they started talking about the missile silos and how the missile silos are definitely part of where you see the UFOs. And so it was almost like we have a place where we're at that on a geo map, we are in the very center. The tourist lady from Marana at that time, she looked on a geo map and found that we are center in all of these historic monument type spiritual huge mecca places. We're like crossroads in them. And there was times literally when I would see spirits walking, like a whole line of spirits, dead people walking in a row. And I draw spirits. So I draw these things and always share with my clients or whatever. But as I asked people about that, they confirmed that they believe that this was our property has these ley lines or something where spirits kind of come in and interact and dissect. So it was like a bus station of or a huge terminal is basically what a spirit terminal is, kind of what it was. And then so the thing about that though was the airports at that time in the 50s, it was all undercover. Nobody knew it was there anyway because it was all dirt. It was all dirt land, right? So they're like little strips of land. Well, they're still there, but there is an airport right there, but it was part of a CIA cover-up. It was covered up with the CIA right there in that little town, right there in our area. And still, most people don't even know that. to the missile silos, all of these different things are just, it's incredible. And there's some, when the documentary comes out, so I'm not going to say exactly what, because I'm waiting for this this moment when I can share the information, but there is some major information about the tribes and the Native Americans that I kept seeing or others saw that are on that land that have died, or their lives were kind of covered up. So that will be coming out when the documentary comes out, and it's going to be pretty amazing when I get to share that. Talk about what happened with the CIA. He does this part in the documentary. He talks about it because it's really interesting.
So this airstrip is about a mile away from our property, and it is still the remnants of it there now, but it was used for training for World War II pilots way back in the day. Okay, that's when it started. Like in 45 is when they started that era. But during the Vietnam War, they were using that as a airport way station to do their east. What was that? Anyway, their missions and stuff to Vietnam and thing were located and started right there in our area. Back up a little bit, there's been bunches of plane accidents and crashes, and lots of pilots doing up to and
Mysterious
including
plane crashes.
Even at the Marana Airport, there was the Osprey that crashed, and I think there was 19 Marines on that perished. So there's a lot happening that way in and around our area. So I'm blessed. I get to sit at my fire bowl and fire feature with my chair faced west, watching the night sky. It's so active, up to and including, I've personally seen at least 5 or 6 UFOs that just will blow your mind. Just some interesting things with that.
And we're not the only one. We
yeah.
filmed several people for the documentary, and like a gentleman's like they don't live there now, but originally they were seeing all kinds of activity,
Yeah.
Floyd, and they didn't know what Joe was seeing, but they were seeing similar things to what Joe was seeing at the same, 10 years earlier.
Right. There's this land, that Marana area, and with that crossroads that all these things cross over, just basically right on our property.
And you know what? I think too, though. So there with the double homicide murder thing that happened, there was a spin on that because that guy was satanic ritual. Like he ended up taking these poor people that he murdered, shot, and he took them. They owned a big ranch. It was affluent rancher, and then he goes and takes them underneath one of the bridges, which I finally found somebody that would help me figure out where that was. And it was just weird going back to this bridge, but he put them in a cross and they were still alive. So they died this horrific life. But I mean, it was all, so with Amy Allen was one of the people that was saying, like, there was a lot of like satanic type stuff going on in our property. And so the more research I did after that, I was able to find like, wow, and I know Joe doesn't actually he doesn't like paranormal really at all, but he's here with me, and thank you. we just ended up having to do this together. But Joe, talk about the, I know you don't really like to talk about this too, but we had that Bavarian, we found out about the Bavarian necromancer. There was an old, I think it's Mancer, but it's like.
He came along, he was one of the priests that came in with Father Kino way back in the day, okay, and just turned out to be evil with all capital letters.
Yeah.
If it means anything, I'm getting my spiritual chills right now. It's scary. So he terrorized the Native Americans, and he would take them and make them slaves and all kinds of just horrific stuff. And so that, again, our neck of the woods, not knowing I bought property in the middle of Marana, way out in the desert. And
who knows these things, you know?
So thank goodness for Bill Bean and the deliverance and the our due diligence. Again, our little strip of the desert, so beautiful now, and it's so calm.
But we make sure that's a good segue into this. But one of the things that Joe does, he is a craftsman, he's an artist, and he got the idea to put crosses up. So originally we would take our crystals and we do our crystals in each of the corner. We do like a grid of protection. I like see lights and how to do that. And then so Joe, we'd go around to each corner, we'd bless each corner, go to the middle, we'd bring the shaman out to do that. But you know what? That would only work so far. In fact, one of our neighbors came by and said, well, I thought that was just a stone. So he took one of our stones, like it's like an open door. And so literally when we go to our neighbors or the others, we would cross our line, our fence, and we would feel like we were being attacked. Like you'd get that, like Joe was always getting these heart things.
It felt like somebody was squeezing my heart.
Squeezing his heart. I mean, it was really bad. So we ended up, once we got the deliverances, right before that, we put the crosses up and we started doing the Lord's Prayer right when we stopped.
Every time we come into our gate at the property, we'd stop and do the Lord's Prayer. And
we still do.
Yeah, it still do. Every time we leave the property and come back, we have protection. It's a bubble of protection around our property. Now
we go to our house.
Yeah.
And we come in and we do 2 of them before we enter our houses.
So,
And we still do that.
Yes. Yeah.
And we do our prayers together every night. So during the Bill Bean thing, one of the things he, really wanted Joe and I to join together. I thought we had joined together pretty much after this, but we do our prayers every night. We kneel every single night. So we do that together since 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We've been doing that.
It's been magical, the transformation of our property. And I love the oasis is what we call our ranch. So it's a beautiful stretch of the Sonoran Desert. So, yeah.
And I'm not sure how much more time we have, but I definitely want to say that we're good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we have I have books that I've written. One of them is called Through the Veil. And they're on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So it's Through the Veil, a journey of remote viewing and a spiritual communication. So that book has the spirit drawings and actually paintings that I did of these spirits. So it's got that in the book, and it talks about our journey, and it talks about our relationship. So we started talking on a lot of podcasts. And so I was really fortunate with these podcasts. That's what I decided I would keep some of that footage, and that ended up being in the documentary. So the documentary will be in distribution between May and June. So we are excited to share that coming. Aren't you excited to have
Yeah, no, the documentary is very exciting
for
for us, and Mercedes especially. She did every bit of it. It's just amazing what she pulled off. Just absolutely amazing. And we're so excited. I'm very excited for Mercedes on that aspect. And she's just been magical on that and just doing it, making it happen. So excited. It's probably within 6 weeks of being released. And that'll be a big bonus for our little neck of the woods.
Yeah. And so we have a little bit more time. There was something I wanted to go over, and that was, I'm looking at my little notes. I wanted to kind of also share with the land that one of the main things that I was seeing were the Native Americans. And so there's a person that's going to be on later today that will be filmed, Tony Rathman. And I have a show called Explaining the Unexplainable with exorcist Bishop Joshua Sparks. And we had Tony on just last week or last Tuesday. And some of what I was hearing that he had recorded, it really made me, it was sounded like what was in our house that time when I heard the voices that Becky McKitty-Guytis and her team had captured. But it was amazing to see Tony Ratham's work today as a now what's happening, and understand from what I've learned and from what I understand as a person that deals with these spirits, is that they literally are just groups of people that are, well, these were particularly people that were trapped in a space and time that had to be freed, and they were. But it was like all the spirits were basically trying to share that information. And that was my mission from a long time, is to make sure that their voices are heard, because there's so many things that get covered up in our area. You know, it's like as time goes by, and Joe and I've talked about this before, it's like, you know, time goes by and they forget about Pony 1-2. In fact, nobody thinks about Pony 1-2. They died right above on our property. But you know what? I found out from the mayor of Marana when I was finally interviewing him, and I asked him, why is that's on your land? Why isn't that, you know, he knew about it. People that lived there knew about that. So these men died, and they're totally forgotten. They've had in the space where they died. So Joe made a monument, a beautiful monument, about 3 years ago, and we held our ceremony. It was beautiful. And I even contacted Pony 1-2. I contacted their family. I found them. I know where they have their ceremony. They have it in North Carolina. They used to have one in Tucson. They had 2 in Tucson. But we're not going to forget them. We're not forgetting any of these spirits. And that's why it's really important for us to realize, sorry about that, that these are people that they're behind a veil. They're in here right now. And they have a story, especially if they died, and like that was a mystery death. For the longest time, nobody knew why that plane, it disintegrated in midair, that chopper. I mean, it was a Jolly Green Giant is what it was called. And it disintegrated. So it took a long time for them to find out that it was the rotator blade.
It's the big bearing.
Yeah,
There.
That took a while. So for the longest time, it was a huge mystery that nobody understood. And it was a line of mysteries. This was, and even on the Dead Files, they talk about this. They talk about how many weird plane crashes happened. Another thing I'm finding out about our area is because I've become a huge fan of Missing 411 with David Paulides, and I listened to this and I thought, well, our area is very bizarre. I wonder if there's something like that. And sure enough, I found that there is a Missing 411 case of another rancher that is in our vicinity, which I'd never heard about. So I'm going to research that. And there was another one in the ours is Sayurita, no. Ours is Saguaro National Forest.
Yeah, this is World
Right.
National, yeah.
So another one was in Saguaro National Forest, which is where we are. We're like on the border of Saguaro National Forest. So again, these are unusual phenomenon that are happening. And I really believe that it has to do with the land and everything that's happening. And so Joe and I are planning on doing a second documentary called Ghosts in the Dark. And that's going to take us on to where I've already started, but this documentary will really focus on the paranormal. The first documentary, Shadows of the Desert, talks about the history, a lot of what happened to us and on that land. And Joe comes in and on that a lot and shares the facts about the UFOs and different things, because we're not the only ones that have seen it, like we've said. Is there anything you wanted to kind of finalize before we end this, Joe, since you're up here with me?
Well, it's been a one heck of a ride. Okay. Early on, before we found out what was going on with this property, it was tough on our property. It was tough. And thank goodness again we had that deliverance. We got that. We had shamans out, and it would be nice for a week or two. It would just settle down. But when it, man, after that, and after we started working diligently on keeping it protected and igniting the good of protection on almost a daily basis, it really settled down, and it's such a beautiful place now. Just imagine,
so
we love our little
we do.
oasis.
I'm very thankful that we made it through this. And if anybody, oh, that's right. I was on speaking on with George Norrie on Coast to Coast last year. And I got to talk about my new books and different things. And because of that, I answered questions to the audience. And several people after the show was over, several people from our area contacted me via email through Coast to Coast. And, you know, it was, what's hard is, like, I have to still deal with I'm a remote viewer, so I have people I work with in all different states. But this one, because it was in our area and I could feel the pain and suffering of these people, just like what we had gone through. So, I mean, literally, I think we got it off our property, but I think it's obviously what's happening still goes and gets the spot, these people, they're open doors.
Just because we've got this area carved out doesn't mean this negativity is still not around. In fact, we have some cowboy neighbors that just horrific. It's hard for them to.
They have issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Hopefully they won't be watching this.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the what I guess I'm saying is that why we're up here talking about the routines that we have put in place is because they work. Because we know, I mean, like, literally, I feel like I was under attack. I could have almost died again, is how bad it got. But I'm not. I'm here and we're good. And so, if anything, I really hope that people will, look at the books or watch the documentary when it comes out. And just to let you know, we have this amazing exhibit Joe has created. Beautiful Spirit interactive art, and that is at the Desert Museum right now, the Sonora, Arizona Desert Museum. And so my beautiful spirit, or beautiful spirit, that is the spirit, our connection that we believe in, that is connected to God. And so it's amazing that you're getting to do this amazing art. Do you want to say anything before we close?
Again, Beautiful Spirit interactive art is exactly that. You get to manipulate these cranks, and you get to touch and feel, and the wings on a butterfly will flap, or dragonfly will go, and it's just so much fun. The children love it. And this will be a touring exhibit that goes to mainly botanical gardens and zoos and such. And that's just, again, more exciting stuff happening in our life and our growth on this planet Earth.
So thank you everybody that's watching. Come out if you can into to Oracle. There's still plenty of time. It goes on till 4 plus 5 o'clock. So come on down here right now and see everybody. It's a great time today. Thank you so much for having us be speaking here today.
Thank you. Bless you.